Today we're going to create a timesheet application. Timesheet is a very common application that is used by many businesses. Although there are lots of timesheet applications in the market, let's say that we want to create our own completely custom timesheet application. As always, we start in Excel. We design our timesheet application in Excel. Now let's start with what type of data fields that I need in this application. Obviously, I need to capture the name of the employee, and I need to capture, let's say, if we're going to create a weekly timesheet, let's assume that we're creating a weekly timesheet, we're going to capture week starting. Obviously, we need to give them names. Remember, we always need to define name ranges. So I'm going to call this name. And this is my field week starting. And I'm going to put a number here. Let's say I'm capturing 10/8/2018. So that's my starting. Let's also say that we're going to need the week number. Let's say the first week of the year, second week of the year, some sort of a numerical representation. I'm going to call this week. And Excel has a very nice formula called week num. So essentially by using week num, you can capture the week number. So essentially the week of 10/8/2018 is the 41st week of the year. So that's kind of our numerical representation of the week. Now let's create also the daily data entry section. So I'm going to create basically a grid here. So I'm going to put date. I also want to know the day. Was this a Monday, Tuesday? I want to know regular hours. And let's also capture overtime hours. And of course we need the total. For date, I want the date to start with week starting. And after that, I'm going to add 1 to this plus 1, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's 7 days. Obviously, we want to format this to say short date. All right, here we go. Now, which day of the week this is? Is it Monday, Tuesday? Excel has a formula called weekday. I can call weekday formula, and there's also a return type. What return type means is that, okay, week starting from Sunday or Monday. I usually prefer week starting Monday, so I'm going to pick option number 2. Okay, so this is first day of the week, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. But what if I want to use the actual days, like Monday, Tuesday? That's also a simple formula, so I'm going to create a simple formula here. First, I'm going to create a simple list. Monday, Tuesday. There are other ways of doing this, but let's just use this approach. So I'm going to call this days. And basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to use another simple formula called index. And I'm going to grab that array of days and then match find the matching to the number from the weekday formula, and that's going to give me the actual date. Go Monday, Tuesday. Again, if you change this to 10/9/18, let's say your week is starting from that day, it's going to start from Tuesday, Wednesday. So let's just stick to 10/8 here. All right. And this is the section where the user will enter regular hours, overtime hours, and obviously I want to do a sum here. Some of these guys. And also I want to capture total regular hours during that week and total overtime hours during that week. So let's write these formulas. And then also we want the total hours during that week. As you can see, if I put numbers, everything is calculated properly. Okay, so again, want to create name ranges. So let's say this is my, I'm going to call this time card table. All right, so it's my, so it has all the sums and everything, and that's pretty much it. So let's say this is my time card. Let me just capture this week number called week number, so we can reference this in our application. So it looks like we have now built a very simple timesheet application in Excel. So that's step one. Step two is to turn it into a web application. Now for this, I'm going to save this and I'm going to switch to my web interface. So let's log into our account. This is your SpreadsheetWeb account, of course. You're logging into your SpreadsheetWeb account, and then we're going to create an application. Remember, we're creating a designer application, so pick designer, hit next. So we're going to find that Excel file that we just created, drag and drop it here, and then go to application. Now we're going to create our simple user interface. Go to the user interface tab. So I'm going to drop a section. So remember, we have our inputs. First input was name, so select that, capture name, and hit enter. The next one is week starting. Remember, that's a date field, so I'm going to grab a calendar control. All right, and select week starting. You can also select the default value, but I want to get rid of the default value, and I want to make sure that the date time format is US short date. Okay, perfect. And the next one, I also want the user to see week number. So let's drop another control, select week number, and this will be a calculated field. Hit OK. All right. The next step is to insert our data grid. So I'm going to drag and drop an input grid here. Associate that with time cards. That has headers, automatically detected that it has headers. So let's confirm. Okay, so quickly I'm going to go and create and make sure that we have the field definitions properly done. All right, so mass type, I'm going to change the mass type to US date. Submit. The next one is day. Remember, that's Monday, Tuesday, so leave it as is. Regular hours, so I want to make sure that that's a decimal with a precision of, let's say, 2. Okay. Overtime hours, I also want to make sure that this is a decimal with precision 2. Let's not forget to make it editable. I'm going to do the same thing for hours, editable, perfect. And the last one is total hours. I'm going to change the mass type to also decimal. This one is not editable because that's total formulas. Okay, hit submit. And let's hit submit. Let's see how it looks. I'll check the preview. Alright, this is how the application will look and feel like. If if I make a selection, let's say it's going to start from 15th, formulas update, entering hours. Okay, perfect, everything works. Let's do overtime hours. Yep, everything works. All the totals are calculated as expected. Okay, so that is the user interface. Next thing I want to do, I want to create the database. So I'm going to go to the database section, add new. Let's call this main table. And remember, I want to grab the inputs here. So I'm just going to select add used columns. So used column means used in the user interface. Name is one. Week starting is the other. Week number, let me change this to integer because we know that it's an integer. Okay, and that's it. And now we need to create another table, remember, because that's the daily hour table. So I'm going to go back to the database, add new. I'm going to call this hours, but this one is a one-to-many table because it's a grid. And I'm going to select a time card from here. I know that it has header. Hit next. Now, column name date, date time field, next. Day is string. Regular hours. So I know that this is actually a decimal field. So I'm going to change it to decimal. Overtime hours, I know that that's also a decimal. Next. And total hours, change it to decimal, finish, and we're done. So now that we created our database structure, all I need to do is to go back to the user interface and just simply add a button to be able to submit this information to the database. So I'm going to create a new section here and put the button there and associate that button with save event, and that's it. Hit submit. Now we have our application. Now let's publish the application. Let's see how it will work. Okay, the application is published. Here is the application called Time. I'm going to click on it. This is the unique URL for this application. Okay, let's say we're going to create a time card for Jane Doe for the week of, let's say, 1st. Okay, calculations kicked in. And say Jane worked 8 hours on Monday and 1 overtime hours. 7 regular hours on Tuesday and 2 overtime hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, 6 hours, and Saturday and Sunday she didn't work. And then hit submit. So when we hit submit, what happens is that now there's a database record in the system. So by simply going to the control panel, Andy, the user that I logged in with, Andy Dawson, can see these submissions, and there's only one submission in the system, and that's the one from Jane Doe. And here it is. If needed, Andy can edit that particular record and see what Jane has submitted. When we talk about timesheet application, there is typically a workflow that a timesheet comes. Sometimes it is approved, sometimes it's not approved. The hours may not always be approved. So let's try to implement a workflow. In order to do that, we need to implement some rules. Rules means some formulas. So for that, we need to go back to the Excel workbook and create some additional inputs that would a user like Andy Dawson can approve or deny a timesheet application. So let's create a field called approver. Let's say that's the name of the approver and we want to capture it in the system. Let's say Andy is not the only person who can approve these timesheets. Let's say in this company there are multiple people who will be able to see these submissions and approve or decline their statuses. Another field is going to be status. And let's also put some notes. If there's if a particular timesheet is denied, then it makes sense to enter the reason for denying. Now for approver, we can always let the approver type his or her name. But it is also possible to grab the name information from the system, because remember, approver is a person who logs into SpreadsheetWeb, so that's an authenticated user. There is a special formula in SpreadsheetWeb called SpreadsheetWeb user info. Now through SpreadsheetWeb user info formula, we can capture a number of things. One of the things we can capture is first name. Now obviously that's going to show as name error, but once this workbook is uploaded to the server, this particular field, this particular cell will be populated with first name of that person. In this case, it will be Andy. But let's say first name is not enough for us. I want to have first name and last name. I want the full name. And then I'm going to join first name and last name, both using SpreadsheetWeb user info formula. So I'm going to use concatenate formula. You're all familiar with concatenate formula in Excel. So concatenate first name, let's put a space character here, and then I'm going to put the second formula, SpreadsheetWeb user info. This time I'm going to capture last name. Alright, here it is. And then I'm going to call this name, call this approver. Alright, next one is status. This will be status. But let's say I want the statuses to be a selection. I don't want people to randomly type a status there. So let's say my status definitions will be, one will be, let's say, pending, approved, and denied. I'll call this list status. Okay, and here basically I'm going to insert a data validation list, and I'm going to grab this list status. Hit OK. Bang. And then this section is called notes. Okay. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to when I add the approver section into the form, obviously I don't want that section to be visible to the person submitting the time card. I want that section to be visible only to approver users. And let's say those users have a user role in SpreadsheetWeb. Again, these user role definitions are applicable in SpreadsheetWeb system. Let's say I want those users to have the admin role. Then I need to capture the role, just like I captured the name, first name and last name of the authenticated user. I can simply capture the user role, and I'm going to call this user role, of that user. Again, I'm using the same formula, SpreadsheetWeb user info. This time I'm going to call this role. Okay, and I'm going to name this field user info. Okay. The next thing, the last thing, is to write the condition. And I'm going to call this condition, let's say, is approver. So that means that this cell will be true if the user who logged into the system has admin credentials, else it's going to be false. So that means that my formula is going to be like, if user role, this is the field that I created, equal to admin, then true, else false. Again, this is going to show me a name error because there is no information here in user info. I'm sorry, I think I called this user info instead of user role. That's okay. I'm just going to change this to user info. No problem. So this will be, if user info is admin, then it's going to be true. To prevent any false entries, I'm going to add another formula called if error, just like in this case. If it returns error, always make it false. So I don't want a situation where someone who's not supposed to access this information can access it. So only admin users can access it. Okay, and I'm going to name this field is approver. It's a Boolean field. It can only take true or false. Hit save. Next, I'm going to go back to my interface and add this additional section. Let's go to the applications. Edit my newly created timesheet application. Create a new transaction. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to upload that Excel workbook that we just updated. Go to the Applications tab. This is where you upload the spreadsheet file. Again, I'm going to drag and drop it here. Hit Update. Okay, that Excel file is uploaded. The next thing I'm going to do is to hit User Interface. Okay, first of all, I'm going to drag and drop a section here. So this section is going to be my admin section. And inside the admin section, the first thing I want is the approver name captured from the list. Okay, so these are the newly created name ranges. Select approver. Okay, and hit submit. The next thing I want is the status information. Remember, status is a drop down. Drag and drop this drop down here. Select status as the list name, list status, and hit OK. So this is the status. And finally, we are going to insert our notes section. Select notes. One thing I want to do, I want to make that notes section a multi-line because it can be a long text. And I'm going to put this top and hit OK. So this is a larger notes section. Okay, so this is the admin section. Now the question is, how do we make the admin visible for the admin users, but invisible for other users who are submitting their timesheets? So you need to select this, and then this is the entire section. So I'm going to change the visibility of this section by value, and that value will be is approver. Remember, is approver is that formula field. That formula turns true if the authenticated user is an admin user, and it turns false otherwise. Hit submit, and so my application is ready. Let's do a quick preview. Remember, because I am authenticated as Andy Dawson, and Andy Dawson is an admin user, that section, the admin section, will be visible to me, as you see here. But if let's go publish this application. So this is how I want it to look like. Okay, confirm. So the application is being published. Okay, so I'm going to click on the application link. I'm just going to grab the URL. If I take this URL and go to another browser where I know that no one has been authenticated, this is essentially a public access. You see, the admin section is no longer visible. So I can simply go here and submit. Let's say my name is Paul Smith, and I'm going to submit my hours for the same week. Let's add 8 hours every day. So it's a 40-hour week, and hit submit. Okay, it is submitted. Let's move this aside. Now let's go back to our control panel. On the control panel, click on the data section. At this time, there will be 2 records. First one was Jane Doe's. The second one is Paul Smith's. If I simply edit Paul Smith submission, the admin section will be visible to me because I'm authenticated in the system as Andy Dawson. You see, it shows my name here. So as Andy Dawson, as an admin, I can review, and let's say I'm going to change this to approved and hit submit. So this way, admin section is only available to admin users. The regular submission section is available to all other users. And as a result, you can basically collect time cards from all of the employees, while an admin user can approve or deny them. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.